yeah, it's been probably over a month since I've played my 7-string guitar. By the way, this is the ESP E2 Horizon FR7, and yeah, it's quite the beautiful and brutal beast. Now, I know right off the bat, some of you are saying, and we're about to get into the meat and potatoes, by the way, now I'm kind of hungry, but I know some of you are saying, Jason, you've been saying for a while that you're gonna sell your 7-string guitar. You still have it. What's going on, dude? Make up your mind. We are going to talk about that in our little guitar chat at the end of this video, so you'll want to hang around for that. But first, I've got 3 things I want to share with you here. Now, of course, this is going to help you if you're a 7-string guitar player, especially kind of new at it, or if you're thinking about making that transition. But even if you have no intention of ever playing a 7-string guitar, I still think you're going to find these 3 tips very valuable. So let's dig into these. Don't allow yourself to become boxed in to just a tiny little area on your fretboard when you're playing those ultra low notes. Now, this applies to 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars, down-tuned guitars. We all, and I've been guilty of this as well, we all just have a tendency to go to those low notes every time we pick up our guitar. Look, it sounds cool, it's brutal, and it just opens up this new world of possibilities. It's awesome, but that new world of possibilities, again, becomes this tiny little box when that's all you play. Now, this can even happen in E standard tuning. No tuning or no amount of strings, whether greater or less, is exempt from this, what I consider a grave downfall as a guitar player. You've still got the other strings on your guitar, right? And you've still got all these other frets on your guitar. Venture out, right? Move around on those. Don't allow yourself to just play the same low notes all the time every time you play your guitar. And a couple of things happen if you allow yourself to get caught in this trap, which again, I think a lot of us do from time to time. One, everything you play is going to sound the same. Even if you're playing different notes and even if you're playing different chords, because you're hanging out around those lowest notes that entire time, all the time, everything's just gonna kind of run together. The other thing is you start losing that skill set that hopefully you're working on before, right? Playing the other strings, the other frets, and just venturing out into other areas, even in different keys and such, right? If we're always going to that lowest note possible, that can actually hinder your abilities as a guitar player. So just realize that there are other strings, there are other frets, and this doesn't mean that you can't ever play those low notes. Maybe you play those lowest notes, I don't know, 60, 70% of the time, but maybe save 30% of the time to be in other areas throughout your fretboard. And that just gives your music diversity, and it also allows you to continue to build your skill as a guitar player, not just a low note player. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, this next tip is actually something I've struggled with over the past 4 years of having a 7-string guitar. I didn't realize that I struggled with it until recently. And some of you are gonna be like, yeah, Jason, I totally get what you're saying, while others may be like, no, that's really never been an issue for me. There's no right or wrong, by the way. We all have our own individual experiences, and I'm just sharing mine with you. But here's what I'll say to you. Don't let having a 7-string guitar, if you're used to playing a 6-string guitar, you go to 7, don't allow that to change your style of playing. Rather, and this is important, rather allow having the 7-string to expand your current style. And again, I struggled with this, but didn't realize this. I didn't realize what it was until, I don't know, probably a week ago when I pulled out my 7 out of the case after like a month. Keep in mind, guys, I've been playing nothing but 6-string guitars since 1989, since I started. Man, it seems such a long time ago. But I had never touched a 7-string. I think I might have played 1 or 2, like a buddy had one, and it was like, oh, okay, this feels weird, but I never had a 7-string up until about 4 years ago. So it was brand new. It was almost like a new instrument to me. I've got a lot of videos out there on the 7-string, by the way. So I have a playlist on my channel. I'll include this video in that playlist as well. But I guess this was sort of subconscious for me. I had this notion in my mind, this like weird cognitive bias that was saying like, well, now you're playing a 7-string, so you have to play a different style. Right? Now, sometimes a different style will naturally evolve from that, okay? But I had this thing just kind of stuck in here, well, I've got to play it this way, not the old way that I've been, playing guitar for years or decades rather. But guys, I kind of struggle with this at a very deep subconscious level. And again, I didn't realize this, I guess probably a week ago when I picked up the guitar out of the case. Listen, I have put this guitar down so many times, put it away, like I'm just not cut out to be a 7-string player, just not me, and I've picked it back up again. This last time I went through this, man, this has been one of those roller coaster relationships. But this last time I picked it up, this time, this specific tip that I'm sharing with you guys, or maybe we call it experience and not tip, it just dawned on me that there were times throughout playing the 7-string where I subconsciously felt that I had to change the way I played guitar. And that's not the case. You can still play, let's say you play hair metal or thrash metal, because I love all that, Let's say that's your style of music. Well, you can still play that on a 7-string guitar. You don't have to change that style. Rather, you can allow your 7-string to help you expand on playing that style of music. Let me share a quick example with you. So let's play just a typical progression here, okay? I'm going to play a E minor, C, and D. Just as if it were a 6-string guitar. I can still play that same style, allowing the 7-string to expand my style. Listen to the difference here. So all I did was I played the E power chord in the same area, right? In the same place, the E power chord right there, the E and the A string. But instead of playing my C and D, like you would play on a 6-string on those A and D strings, well, I utilized the B and E string to play that C and D. Still the same style. I played the same notes, same everything, right? But I allowed the 7-string to help me expand my style. And real quick, before we go to our third and final tip here, it doesn't mean that your style won't change. Again, there's an organic process that will happen. There's like that natural evolution that will happen. That happens anyway as you're playing guitar. The more you practice, the more you play, your style will evolve. But I truly believe as your style evolves and as you become better, you will have kind of this core style. When people hear you play, you actually want them to know it's you without even seeing you playing. If you think of guitar players like Joe Satriani, for example, I'm confident that he could pick up any guitar and play through any amp. You would know it's him because he has this core style about his playing. Slash, Kirk Hammett. You could go down the list on a lot of these guitar players. You know it's them as soon as they play those first few notes. All right, the final tip here, and we'll keep this short because I want to get to the guitar chat at the end here. Again, that's going to be really, really interesting, and it's always like we're just sitting in the studio here together, just hanging out, talking about cool stuff. Guitars being one of them, and maybe having some coffee, tea, or even a beer together. Hey, that's a good time. Anyway, 7-string guitar. This is pertinent for playing 7-string or however many strings you have on your guitar. Don't neglect, guys, this is crucial, okay? Don't neglect playing regular chords. chords on your 7-string guitar. I say this because we don't really think about playing like a regular G or a D or C or E minor or whatever when we're playing 7-string, because 7-string, well, most of us are playing metal. Now, I know that other genres use 7-string guitars as well. I've heard of jazz and country players use 7-string guitars, so of course they're probably a little bit better guitar players than most metal 7-string guitar players, simply because, and I know this sounds like complete blasphemy, but simply because they're playing more frets and utilizing all the strings, whereas a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of metal guitar players just play power chords and of course riffs. And as complex as some of those riffs may be, they're not truly expanding like some of these other artists are of different genres on a 7-string. I'm gonna get killed in the comments for that statement, I'm sure. I don't play jazz. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it. And, well, actually, I do play a little bit of country at my solo acoustic gigs. Don't tell anybody. But don't neglect the basics of guitar just because you have a 7-string guitar. Every now and then, practice playing just full chords on your guitar. And I'll even go a little bit further, and this doesn't apply to all of you because many of you that play the 7-string, you're playing solos as well, but make sure you're practicing your lead patterns and playing guitar solos on the 7-string. I say that because when you're playing a 6-string guitar, if that's what you're used to, well, you've got those very comfortable keys that you're playing in. Of course, E minor's one of them, maybe A minor, right? But when you switch over to playing a 7-string, you start playing naturally in different keys some of the time, especially if you're going for that heaviest note possible a lot, which that's a B, which typically that's going to be a B minor, right? It's going to be in the key of B minor rather. So when you go to play solos, you're going to be playing some frets that you might not be used to playing if you don't play in that key on a 6-string guitar. But the point is to practice the other frets, the other strings, right? Practice those open chords, practice those guitar solos, do all the stuff and more that you would normally do on your 6-string guitar with your 7-string guitar. So I do hope that that makes sense. And I hope that little tip helps you, because I promise you, if you're not used to playing full chords on a 7-string guitar and you go to do that, you're like, oh, where am I at? This happened to me when I first picked up the 7-string. I went to play a G chord, right? And then, of course, I go for that 1st string 3rd fret, which is not a G, and I strum like, wait a minute, something's not right here. So it's kind of like I had to, I did this quickly, but I had to relearn how to play chords. And it was kind of like, okay, well, I just need to omit in my mind that B string when I go to playing just regular chords. Now, you can integrate the B string, the low string, with some of the chords as well. You have to figure that out. You can do that. But again, don't neglect the basics, right? Don't let yourself get too far away from the basics to where you can't play the basics on your 7-string guitar. All right, guys, it is time for some guitar chat, and we're going to talk about why I still have this 7-string in my possession. Possession sounds so evil. Actually, that's a cool bad English song. But anyway, I want to share this with you guys. I think this is going to be an interesting and short conversation here. Real quick though, if you do not have my free metal guitar practice guide called Metal Riffs and Licks, grab a copy of that, okay? There's a link in the description of this email. If you already have the guide and you're not in one of my guitar courses, I've got links to my guitar courses. I've got the Metal Riff Master course out there. That's helped so many guitar players. I know a lot of you on here have that. Now, if you're just starting to transition into playing metal guitar, you're kind of new at it, I've got a course called Metal Guitar Apprentice that goes over the basics and the fundamentals of metal guitar. So that's the one you'd want to get into first if you're at that beginner's level. All right, so back to the 7-string. Why do I still have this guitar after having struggled with it for so long? And then ultimately, like 3 months ago, I had decided I was going to get rid of it. I was just going to part ways with it. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. One is I just kind of felt that I wasn't a 7-string player. Every time I went back to playing 6-string, I felt more at home. And of course, we went over some of the context behind me wanting to part ways with this in the tips that I gave you, especially that second tip when I talked about the deeper level of struggle that I had with the 7-string. And the other reason is, well, I've been on this kick, and this is kind of personal here. It's not like deeply personal, but I've really wanted to minimize the things that I have in my life. And even in my life setup, just everything. I've been wanting to live with less, if that makes sense. And like, as much as I'd love to see a wall full of guitars, I mean, you guys can see I only have a few guitars here in my studio. I don't really have a lot. And I'm not downing people that have a lot of gear, guys, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying you should follow my path. That is not what I'm saying. I'm not one of those people. You know, we all have certain paths that we follow in certain seasons of our life. So in no way am I saying that you should do what I'm doing, that you should think how I think. I'm not saying that at all. I am simply sharing what's going on in my life right now and just some of the changes that I've been wanting to make. I've found about myself that's kind of how I function a little better, right? I don't really like a lot of choices. A lot of people like a lot of choices, right? And I totally get that. But me, the way my mind works, and maybe I'm just more simple-minded, I'd rather have just a small handful of options that I really like instead of having an overwhelming amount of choices, which I tend to get overwhelmed by things like that. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like you have to know thyself, right? We have to be honest with ourselves. Another thing, and this is going to tie into me picking up the 7-string a week ago, is I've been really honing in on listening to my intuition at a much deeper level than I've ever listened to it before. This is something that I've struggled with really throughout my entire life, is really trusting my own intuition. I was sort of plagued with just a lack of confidence throughout my entire life. I never really had that confidence. You know, some people have it and some people don't. I think we can all have it. I think some people have to work harder at it. And I don't think I worked hard enough at having that confidence. And real quick, just a kind of a side note here, the way to build your confidence is simply by taking action. It comes through execution. A lot of times we don't take action. We don't execute because we're afraid of failure. We're like, well, I can't do that, right? What if I fail at it? And that's okay if you fall down. It's okay if you fail. That failure really is just a stepping stone, right? It's just a lesson. It's part of the learning process of you building your confidence and building yourself, right? Building yourself up and achieving that goal or that dream or whatever it is that you're going after. These are things I've always struggled with, but I've really gotten to a much deeper level at listening to my intuition. And here we are a week ago, my intuition. I didn't have a deep desire to do this, okay? This is much different. I didn't really have the desire to do this, but my intuition, something said, get your 7-string out of the case, play it, just jam. I almost questioned my intuition because, again, I've struggled with this whole 7-string thing for so long, but I pulled it out of the case. Part of listening to your intuition, by the way, guys, is you must act right away. You must not hesitate. Let me know if you'd like to talk more about that in another video. Anyway, so I listened to my intuition. I acted right away. I got the 7-string out. It's almost like I fell in love with it all over again. Much different from the first time I played it, and then all the times thereafter, and the times where I'm like, you know, I'm not sure about this thing, so I'd lay it down for a little bit. Then I'd pick it back up and love it, lay it down again. This time was much different. And guys, I don't know what will become of this. Well, I do know. There's going to be some 7-string music coming your way, so expect that. But anyway, I broke it out. I'm glad I listened to the intuition. I'm glad I didn't sell it. I'm glad the powers to be didn't allow me to sell it, because again, when I was trying to sell it, nobody was buying. 7-string sells, but who's buying? Bad make it up pun. Stay tuned for more 7-string content and, well, more just content in general. I'm going to be cranking out a lot more videos here. I was kind of suffering with some illness over the past couple of weeks. I had lost my voice again for the second time this year. That's why I sound kind of hoarse. And actually for 2 weeks, I couldn't play my live solo gigs. Fortunately, I didn't have anything scheduled for that chunk of time. So that kind of just like organically worked out, you know. But then here recently, I had gigs, 4-hour gigs, 3 nights in a row. And my voice wasn't quite up to par. I've got a video coming up on that, how to sing when your voice is not 100%. So for you singers out there, that's going to be a very helpful video. I'm going to be working on that this week too. But anyway, I'm getting off track here, guys. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I truly appreciate your support. Don't forget to check the links in the description of this video, my free practice guide, my guitar courses, all that good stuff. And guys, we will talk again soon. I'll see you on the next video. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it metal.